Hey guys, it's Will with Vinyl Appreciation Society. You're watching 7 super underrated Everclear songs. What? Everclear? Seriously, who thinks about this band anymore? Guess what? I do. So I was a big Everclear fan in like middle school, kind of high school when they were big, and I stopped listening to them, but mostly because my taste in music changed, honestly, and like a couple members of the band left, and it was a while between albums, and I just kind of lost interest in that type of music in general. Recently, I've been going back and listening to especially So Much for the Afterglow and Sparkle and Fade, which I think a lot of people will agree are like the classic Everclear albums. And Everclear, I think, is very often dismissed as like a post Nirvana couple hit wonder anomaly of the grunge era who weren't really that good, that we just liked them because they fit into trends at the time. I completely disagree with that statement. I think that they are really, really solid for those two records in particular. They wrote great songs. They were really tight as a band, and Art Alexakis's lyrics are really, really good and really intense and harrowing and like really sad stories. And as it turns out, I've been reading a little bit about Everclear recently. Not all of them are true. So people assumed that he was writing about his own experiences and his really tough life. And he did have a really tough life, and he did write a lot about his own experiences. But he also told stories too about that kind of world that he came from, and I think he's a really, really strong storyteller, especially for that kind of like, he's not like Bob Dylan where he's like, I'm going to write a 9-minute song and I'll be able to tell this huge story. Like he's writing 2 to 4 minute songs, and within that, he's telling these really kind of compelling stories. So I am sticking to the first 5 Everclear records for this list. So their first record, which was released independently, and then I think re-released once they got the record deal that Sparkle and Fade came out of. Then Sparkle and Fade, So Much for the Afterglow, and then the Songs for an American Movie. There's 2 of those records. There's the acoustic one, and then the heavy one I think is called Good Time for a Bad Attitude. I honestly don't remember what the acoustic one is called. So, but there's nothing from that album on here. That's just kind of like, like the time period that I'm looking at here. So, number 7 on my list of super underrated Everclear songs is, and I have to confer with my list, All Fucked Up. So this is on Songs from an American Movie, Volume 2, Good Time for a Bad Attitude. This is like a classic Everclear, straight ahead, like rip-roaring punk song. It's just awesome. It's high energy, it's melodic, great riffs. There's nothing else to really say about it. And it's not a song that people really talk about. Like, I think Rockstar and If All Goes Wrong Again, I think, is the lead-off track. Those are like the 2 songs from that record that I ever hear people mentioning anymore. And this song, I think, is just as good, if not better than those. Super strong. Go check it out. Number 6 on my list of super underrated Everclear songs is the cover, Our Lips Are Sealed. This song is by the Go-Go's, and this was released on a college-only, mostly covers EP, college radio station only, in the 90s. And I was able to get a copy of this at the Princeton Record Exchange, which was an awesome record store in Princeton, New Jersey. Well, it probably still is. It's still there. And they sold a lot of like bootleg stuff and promo stuff that they would get. And so I got a ton of bootlegs there. And you'll hear a lot more about that when we do episodes in this series on Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana and bands like that. So those are coming soon. Also subscribe if you feel like it. Hey, now's a good time in the video to say that, right? But this is just a really good cover. It sounds like Everclear. It's done really well in their sound, and it's a really good song too to begin with. So all the elements are firing on all cylinders. It's a great track. Number 5 on my list of super underrated Everclear songs is Hateful. So this is, I think, like a B-side kind of like soundtrack song. It was released on the Mom compilation, which is Music for Our Mother Ocean, which is, I think there were a couple of these. So I think it's a series of compilations that came out in the 90s that were to benefit like the ecological preservation of the ocean. And like Soundgarden was on it, and I think Pearl Jam had a song on there, like a lot of the big bands of that era. And so Hateful is Everclear's contribution to the first volume in that series, and it's just a really good, like I said with All Fucked Up, it's like a really good, just fast, heavy, fun Everclear song. Number 4 on my list of underrated Everclear tracks, it's the last track from their first album, and it's called Evergleam, and it's just a really good rock song. It's really solid, and a lot of songs on that first album, you can tell that they're Everclear, but it feels as though the songwriting hasn't quite evolved to where it would be when they were like a really great band. This track, I think, really points the way forward. It's a really solid, melodic, fast rock song that reminds me a lot of later Everclear, and it's definitely, for me, I mean, I know everyone obviously is different. For me, that's like the gem of that first record. World of Noise is the name of the record, and that's like the gem of that record. I really love it. Number 3 on my list of super underrated Everclear songs, Summerland. So this is a track that you probably know if you're an Everclear fan or if you had Sparkle and Fade back in the 90s, but I think this track stands out as good as anything else on that record, with the exception of maybe like the big singles, which would be like You Make Me Feel Like a Whore, Heroin Girl, Santa Monica, basically, right? Those are like the big singles from that record. So this is a really sad song, and it's about a couple as best I can tell, who are either a couple or like close friends who are just in a crappy situation and they want to get out of it. And there's a place on a map that they look at called Summerland, and that becomes their dream. Like, let's get out of this crap hole and let's move to Summerland. And it's a very sad, kind of like mid-tempo song that kind of like drifts somewhere between kind of a ballad and a rock song. That's just that's a really, I think, really great observation of being stuck in a crappy place and wanting to get out. Number 2 on my list of super underrated Everclear songs, Amphetamine. This is on So Much for the Afterglow, and this is just obviously I like Everclear's faster, punkier stuff because like half this list is those types of songs. This is that type of song. It's fast, it's heavy, it's melodic. Again, it tells a really good story of someone who's fallen victim to drug addiction, and because Art Alexakis himself, I think, was addicted to drugs and knew a lot of people who were addicted to drugs, people in his family, close friends of his, he tells really, really compelling, authentic, really sad stories about that lifestyle. And so this is one of those songs, but it has really awesome, fast, catchy music. And so it's like a classic kind of like mid-90s post-Nirvana, fast, catchy rock song with these great lyrics to boot. So number 1 on my list of super underrated Everclear songs, this is a song that people actually probably know better than they know a lot of the other songs on this list because it's a lead-off track on So Much for the Afterglow. It is called So Much for the Afterglow. So if it's the lead-off track on an album that sold 2 million copies, obviously a lot of people have heard it. Why do I think it's super underrated? This is my favorite Everclear song. I think this is better than Santa Monica, Father of Mine, like all their singles. And I just love this song. It starts off with this Beach Boys-esque kind of part of these vocal harmonies, and then it busts into this kind of like classic Everclear chord progression. It's just a great song. It's everything that you like about Everclear, if you like them. There are probably people watching this video like, why is this guy talking about Everclear? Do we still listen to them? Yes, we do, and we still like them. So Much for the Afterglow is the name of the song. It is my number 1 super underrated Everclear track. Thank you for watching our video of super underrated Everclear songs. My name is Will. We will be back with more of this series. You have been watching Vinyl Appreciation Society, and we will see you next time.